Hello, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us this evening. We have another great event for you, and this one is hybrid. So we've got a live audience under the Zoom library here at the offices in BCS, London, central London. Despite it being a grey and gloomy day, we hope to have a nice, cheerful event for you. My name is Darlin, and I'm chairman of 3 great groups in the BCS. They are BCS North, Central and South London. And all together, we have thousands of members, so you're in very good company. I hope that you too are a member of the BCS for sure, and maybe of BCS London branches. You probably know that we have a series of events which we call initiatives, and that this is one of our Womenspiration initiatives. Womenspiration, the tagline is inspiring women with inspiration for everyone. And so I'm looking for you to be inspired, and also people here. I'll be monitoring them, and I've got my snorometer at the ready as well. But I hope instead that the clapometer will be more relevant. Our partnership with BCSWomen for these series of events focuses on my colleague Joe Stansfield, who is not only a committee member of BCSWomen, but also very much a BCS stalwart in a number of other ways, about 4 or 5 ways. She's very senior in BCS in a polite way. And tonight, Joe has another important guest for us. BCSWomen, inspiring women with inspiration for everyone. Joe, who do you have for us this evening?
Oh, thank you, Dan. So today with my Nicky Danino, and Nicky's accomplishments are so great, I have to write them all down. So Nicky is head of school of computing at Leeds Trinity University. She is a very prolific BCS volunteer, involved in the heads of computing and professors. I always forget the acronym.
CPHC.
Which is why I had the notes.
Council of Professors and Heads of Computing, yeah.
And very active in terms of BCS Council and many other ways.
Council, accreditation, nominations, Academy, and hopefully BCSWomen now.
And also BCSWomen. And I hadn't actually written all of those down anyway, so far better to just ask you. So yeah, it's a great pleasure to welcome Nicky today. So before I start asking Nicky some questions, just a little bit of housekeeping for everybody. Nicky and I will talk for probably about half an hour. I'll ask some questions, and then there'll be time for all of you to ask some questions at the end, and it'd be brilliant to just have this like a discussion that we all get involved in. In terms of feeling free to ask Nicky questions, please do. Be respectful of what might be personal, so if she hasn't talked about something,
I have no idea what you're going to ask me,
ask her.
She did say to me, do you want to know what I'm going to ask? And I said, you know what? I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
She didn't. I usually share the questions in advance, so this is probably like 100% a surprise for me. But I'll try and be nice.
Hey, I work in education, I can take it.
That's it. Yeah. You're used to the room full of students. Without further ado...
The only other great unknown, and it is, if you hear bells, that's to people here, not people at home. If you hear bells, there is no fire alarm practice scheduled for this evening, so the fire exits are either down there the way you came into the building, or there's another fire exit which is over there. Into the next room, back of the room, fire exit. Go out and we'll see you. We'll chuck you out onto the street and meet you there. So, let's
Oh, and the final bit of housekeeping while we're thinking about all moving around. We'll have pizza and refreshments afterwards, so please stay and chat. It'll be great to have a conversation with you all after we finish the official bits of it as well. So on to our interview, and Nicky, it's brilliant to have you. Now, what I always ask guests to get started is, we've had all the formal introductions, but it's really lovely to just hear about you in your own words. So tell us, who is Nicky Danino?
Oh, my elevator pitch, yeah? I guess the first thing is I'm just going to put it out there and say I'm not Welsh. Because I love to be, I love the Welsh, I love Wales, but lots of people say, oh, you're Welsh, where's your accent from? So I'm from Gibraltar. Anyone's ever heard of it? The rock with the monkeys, yeah? So the great thing about Gibraltar is we follow the British education system. So if you think about the British curriculum, you can see that it follows exactly the same. So that's why I ended up coming to study following through that route. So from Gibraltar, I think I come from a pretty normal family, except that's probably going to be a little bit not quite right when we talk about role models. If you ask, are you going to ask me about role models?
Definitely.
I'll keep it till later then.
Yep.
Normal family, and I came to the UK to study at 18 because that's what the choice given to me, given that we follow the British education system. And I guess I just stayed. I loved the weather so much that I stayed.
Gibraltar weather, UK weather.
Yeah, exactly.
I can see how you made that decision. So, in your role at Leeds Trinity University, can you tell us a bit about what that is and what you do?
Oh, it's one of those things where every day is different, and that's why I love working in higher education. I love working for a university. Obviously, in computer science, we all know that you can go city and earn lots of money and have a really demanding job with lots of variation. But actually, education is fantastic. It's amazing. It's amazing when you see 18-year-olds come and join you. And then you run into them. And actually, on the train on the way down, I was pulling my bag through the train carriage, and one of them says, "Are you Nicky?" I went, "Yes." He goes, "You taught me 10 years ago." And I went, "Oh gosh." It's amazing to see them grow. Sorry.
It's
amazing.
Old.
Well,
Going back to the senior BCS members again.
it's amazing to see them grow and get through that process, and then run into them 10 years later, and they've been really successful. So I love that. I love the fact that every day is different. But what's really great certainly about working at Leeds Trinity is that we're all in it for the students. That's what we're in it for, just to help people, to do good for community. And you get that warm fuzzy feeling at the end of the day. You go home and you think, I've had a great day because I've made a difference to somebody. And it always makes me think of that story. I don't know if you've seen it. It's doing the rounds. It's been doing the rounds for a long time on social media. That there's a little boy walking with a grown-up, presumably his father, on the beach. And it's full of starfish. And he picks one up and chucks it back into the sea. And then he picks another one and chucks it back into the sea. And there's hundreds of them. And the guy says, "Why are you doing that? You're not going to be able to save them all. There's hundreds and hundreds." He says, "Well, you know what? I made a difference to that one." And it's just making a difference to that one person, I think, is really important. And if you can go home at the end of the day and know that you've done that, then I think that's a good day.
Oh, that's wonderful. And what drew you into working in academia?
Oh, it was the holidays, for sure. I mean, it's not. We don't get the same holidays as school teachers because universities are open pretty much all the year round. I think it was I've always been a bookworm. I love learning for the sake of learning. And traditionally, if you think of the concept of academics, that's what we're there for, isn't it? Learning for the sake of learning. Okay, so now we talk about graduate outcomes and making sure that students who go to university can go into worthwhile jobs. But actually, that's just an outcome and a broader benefit of being at university. You're there because you want to learn. And I think that's what drew me to being at university, but also the holidays.
I would love the holidays. I'm quite envious of the academic holidays. So, Nicky, am I right that you're also researching at the moment as well? You're doing your PhD in education and technology.
Yeah, I'm nearly done.
Can you tell us a bit about what you've been finding? What have you been discovering?
Okay, so I'm a little bit unusual because generally at my age, academics, you go through the process of you do your undergraduate, you do your master's, you do your PhD, then you move into a postdoc, you do academia. So I've done mine in later life. So I have been looking at, my interest lies in whether we can use technology, especially social media communication channels, to support students in that space outside of the classroom. So to give students that communication with their education in a 24/7, essentially. That doesn't mean that you're going to be sat there 24/7 answering student emails, but can you create channels for peer-to-peer support, for example, so that they can talk to each other? And it's when you see first years sometimes, they go to university, they're so isolated, they don't have any friends, and And I think it would be fair to say, because I've been doing this for a long time, that computing students sometimes are more isolated than most because they're not as sociable as maybe students who study other subjects. So it's about creating that scaffolding to help them create that social aspect of their studies and helping them make friends, etc. We all know if students don't engage and they don't find their people, then they're highly likely to drop out.
So what have you found? Have you had some success with it? Are you managing to get the students more connected with it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of technology. I'm a big fan of social media. I know lots of people don't like it. I think technology is good. It's just how we use it.
Yeah.
So it's about making sure that we use it the right way.
Yeah. I mean, my kids are certainly not anywhere near university age yet. They're 10 and 13. But I see them really using technology as a way of communicating with their friends. Mm-hmm. And lots of parents will be thinking about, should we let them online quite so much? But actually, that's part of their social channel as far as I'm concerned. It's the way that they interact, it's the way that they kind of form some relationships, they take the lead in some little projects. And so I've seen some real positive benefits from it too, and it sounds like that's really what you've been building on in the work that you're doing with students.
And obviously at that age, I would recommend you keep an eye on what they're doing.
Yes, don't worry, it's very well locked down. What they can do is quite well restricted, or at least we certainly hope so, and check on that. But I've loved the potential actually through computer games that they can start to have some leadership and some different community building that they do in the online space as well as in real life, in the physical world. I know that computer games is something that has been quite an interest of yours. You've enjoyed computer games and you've talked about some
forever.
Of the games. Yeah, so tell us, what games do you enjoy?
Oh, I'm really traditional as well. I still remember. So I still got my first computer. Apart from the little Atari games, my first proper computer, I don't know if some of you remember, it was a Spectrum 48K with rubber keys. Still got it. It still works. It's a little bit strange booting it up now because I look at it and I think, wow, I thought this was amazing. This was the BCS at the time. So I used to love playing games on that. But gaming is really interesting. And I know we're not going to really talk about games a lot today, but we've all heard people say things like, oh, you can't let kids play violent games because playing violent games leads to violent people. I mean, I haven't seen any evidence of that. And I can tell you, I have played some really violent games in my time. Really violent. But I think there's so much that you can do with gaming, and it's fantastic. And you can build a community, get people to talk to each other, dexterity, problem solving, so many positives, but we tend to just hear about the negative aspects.
Yeah, I totally agree. So let's move on and talk about some of your voluntary work and the things that you do with the BCS. Now, you mentioned an awful lot of things. I'm not quite sure where to start, to be honest, Nicky.
We're both on council together, aren't we?
Yeah, we're both on council. What drew you to becoming such a prolific volunteer? What makes volunteering so important to you? I have one person to blame actually, and that's Barbara McManus. Barbara is a BCS member to this day. I think she's a fellow. She used to run BCSWomen lots and lots of years ago. And Barbara used to teach me. So there was a great female role model already in computer science when there wasn't many of them around. So I started my degree in 1993, so it's a long time ago. And I'm still in touch with her. Then we became colleagues as well. And I used to see her always doing all these BCS activities, and I thought that looks really interesting, and she's always doing it with a smile on her face. So actually it was her. It was just seeing somebody doing things and getting engaged and having the encouragement and support from her. So I have to name her. It was Barbara. One specific person, who roped you in.
Yeah.
So how do you manage to juggle, what must be a very busy job with about 10 million different volunteer groups that you seem to be supporting as well? Do you find that you've got so much on that you have to have some strategies about how you actually keep on top of it?
I do, but I've got a really great team at work and we're really efficient, and I know that, for example, today I'm here and I know that things are running really smoothly back at the university. I don't sleep. But actually, I think what it is somebody said to me once, so I used to try and think about maybe writing a paper or an article, I've got to find 3 or 4 hours, a block of 4 hours to get this to happen. And they said, do you know what, you can actually write quite a lot in 10 minutes. You don't have to wait for that 4-hour block. So now if I've got 10 minutes, I'll do something really quickly in 10 minutes. So I'll do something in 20 minutes. Don't wait for that block because it will never happen. You will never get a 4-hour block. And I see people nodding as well. And you'll find 10 minutes here and there. You can either spend 10 minutes looking at TikTok or 10 minutes writing 200 words. And it's about just creating those little efficiencies that when you put them together have some impact.
That's good advice. I'm nodding along as well, and I suspect that many of you, like me, are thinking, that's a great idea. How on earth am I going to get myself to do that? So, Nicky, moving on to yet another strand of things that you do. You've done lots of work around kind of public engagement and STEM outreach as well. Would you tell us a bit about some of the things that you've been doing?
Oh yeah, it's so much fun. I mean, do you know how much fun it is to just talk to a 5-year-old about AI and robots and see them light up? It is fantastic. It's so much fun to do that. So I love doing outreach. I mean, part of it is because universities, to some extent, they do give us the time to do it. So part of our workload, we can do outreach work, we can do public engagement. The other thing is I just love it. So if you find something that you really like, you'll carve the time out to do it. So I did publish a book with a couple of colleagues a few years back called The Science of Superheroes. And it's just, we were just having a chat and we thought, what can we do to tell kids about science and make it exciting? Oh, we know, we'll talk about superheroes and supervillains. So that was a really, really fun project. And it's been great to go to things like Comic Cons and book festivals and talk about that sort of thing. And we did it in conjunction with students. So we had students who were studying publishing help us get this book out. So it was really good experience for them. And one of the really, really cool things they did is they drew each of us, the authors, as our own superheroes. So I've got my own superhero persona as well.
Ah. What does your superhero persona look like? Do you have
She
special
looks like
powers?
me. Oh, I've got super hacking powers.
Super hacking powers. Well, that makes a lot of sense. And you were telling me before we came in here that you have run some events that are all based around Star Wars. And
Oh, you're gonna ask me about cosplaying, aren't you? I knew you were gonna ask me about cosplaying.
Well, I wasn't specifically going to ask about cosplay, but seeing as you mentioned that.
Okay. Any excuse to dress up.
Yeah.
Any excuse to dress up. So I think my most popular talk is probably The Science of Star Wars. And I've had so much fun doing that one because what I do is I dress up as an Imperial officer and I put on my teacher face, you know, my really, really strict teacher face. And the remit around that is basically you're going to come to my session, my workshop, because I'm going to teach you the science, because at the end of the day there's going to be an exam, and if you pass the exam you can enter Imperial officer training for for the dark side of the force. So that is really good fun. But the kids
love that concept.
Yeah, but I don't know who has more fun, whether it's the kids that have more fun or I have more fun.
Well, I think it becomes a reinforcement of when you're enjoying it, they're enjoying it, and people feel relaxed. And
I guess, I mean, who wouldn't dress up as an Imperial officer for work?
Seeing some not sure faces out there, I have to say.
I think we've got a couple of secret cosplayers in the audience.
So, Nicky, let's go back and think about, I don't know, your earlier life, maybe back in Gibraltar. And one of the things,
In the sun.
In the sun, which for some reason you've left to live here all of the time.
I go back a lot.
That's good to hear. So you mentioned, in kind of getting ready for this, about going to an all-girls school and some of the experience around that. And how did that interact with your desire to become like a technologist and a computer scientist?
Well, I wanted to be a doctor when I was a teenager. Then I wanted to be a lawyer because I used to watch LA Law. I don't know if anybody remembers LA Law. I thought that was really cool. So lawyers just walked into courtrooms and shout, "I object," to everything. Is not quite the case. I went to an all-girls school and it was really positive for me. And I do appreciate the fact that it doesn't work for everybody. And I know there are pros and there are cons to going to single-sex schools, but it worked for me, and that's all I can say. And I guess the main reason was that if you wanted to study science at an all-girls school, there was never the underlying issue of, science is for boys, which happens a lot now. I've got a friend who's got a teenage daughter who walked into a computer science class, had a look at the students in the room and walked straight back out again. Really? So, there's no way I'm studying with these geeks, But it didn't happen in a girls' school because that just wasn't the case. It was completely acceptable. And I've done outreach, and I still remember this one incident where I was in a primary school. So generally, actually, at that age, girls tend to be bigger than boys, don't they? They tend to be taller than boys when they're little. And I remember, this was with no malice, but I remember the teacher turning around. We were building pyramids with sticks. It was a bit more of an engineering type activity than computing. And we wanted to clear the classroom. And the teacher turned around and said, "Oh, I need 4 big, strong boys to help me move the tables." And I looked around the room and I thought, you're probably better off with 4 big, strong girls. But, you know, we say these things and there's that unconscious bias going on without thinking that doesn't exist in a girls' school.
Yeah,
I think that was really helpful.
Yeah, that is really fascinating that, you know, that dynamic is just very different, but it's very much reinforced for, you know, people in mixed schools that, you know, computer science especially is really the boys' thing. I mean, at my school, we didn't even have the option to study computer science, but I studied physics and maths, and, you know, that was very much the boys' subjects. But how was it when you got to university? I mean, I know for me, I'd been already fairly used to being in a very mixed, quite male-dominated class, and then I got to university and there was, well, like 4 women out.
Okay, I did speak to
hundreds.
boys.
I mean, in the...
I mean, I was quite sporty. I played a lot of hockey. But no, I mean, it wasn't really an issue. I guess by that stage, I was 18 and I was so confident because I'd gone, I think partly because I'd gone to a girls' school, that it didn't, there was never that concept of the boys are more intelligent than me, or you're going to let the boys speak first. There was none of that.
Yeah, that sounds
quite
like
lucky.
a wonderful set of influences to not have affecting you through those teenage years when
But I think
identity can be built or destroyed, really, can't it?
I can't speak for now, but I think really in them days, I think career advice at school was quite poor. You know, and I don't know if what you did, but I filled in some kind of quiz, and then I think they had a book. The careers advisor was also the PE teacher. And they had a book where, depending what you ticked, they'd tell you, oh, you need to do this. And I think I got something like, you need to be a marketing account executive. Oh. And I was really into science and I didn't even know what that meant, but I came out with my little piece of paper saying, oh, look, I'm supposed to be a marketing account executive.
Yeah.
So,
no, we had a week of work experience where we all got matched up with a local business and they didn't know what to do with me, like in physics and maths. And they assigned me to a local nursery school looking after the 6-month-old babies. Let me say that probably delayed me having a family for a good decade.
did you have to change nappies?
They finally trusted me after a few days to let me change a nappy. So it was not, it was a formative experience, but not a positive one.
But I mean, I was really lucky. My parents, they never questioned anything. So when I think I was 11 or 12, I said to them, oh, I want a computer. They never said why, or they said, okay, you can get one for Christmas, you know, and they bought me the Spectrum 48K. I think maybe I was 10 years old when I got one. And they were great. You know, that sort of side of things. So I had this computer, I had the handbook that came with it, so I taught myself BASIC. I remember so in them days, when you plugged a computer in, there was no hard drive. So once you unplugged it, you lost everything that you typed in. So I spent 3 days typing in the code for the game Hangman. And then I played with it for a while. And then they didn't come with monitors then, so you had to use your TV. So I was taking over the home TV for 3 days. Eventually, they turned around and said, hey, we need the TV back. So, you know, you unplug your computer and you lose everything. No. But I had lots of fun doing that. I just follow the manual. I used to buy the magazines at Spectrum, but that was it. You felt quite isolated, you know, just doing your thing. Cool. Study this at university. Wow.
So I think when we were talking before, you described how actually when you started university, computing wasn't the subject that you'd chosen to follow.
No, I mean, because I went to girls' school, I did A-levels in English literature, Spanish literature and history. It makes me really good at trivial because I got the science.
That is a skill I have
literature.
Zero.
Lots of literature. I always pick literature. If you ever play with me, I'm going to pick literature and all the literature questions. No, I went to the university to study. I don't know what it was. I think it was, I don't even remember, something like politics and philosophy, because it kind of matched what I studied for A-level. And I did about 2 weeks of it, and I was really lost. I was clueless. I was going to these classes and I didn't know what was going on. But of course, universities were really, in terms of computing and tech, they were really at the forefront in the UK in the 90s. Yeah. So I joined the Computer Society because I thought it sounded cool and I love tech. And all of a sudden, I'm surrounded by people who know what they're talking about. And they were all studying computer science. So 2 weeks in, I want to do computer science instead.
Switched.
Yeah.
And the rest is history.
I had to convince them to let me switch because I didn't do A-level, I guess, and they probably needed more females on the course. Who knows?
So coming back to talking about women in computer science, there being such a distinct lack of them. I think we're at about 21%
Apparently.
Apparently.
I'm not convinced.
And something that you talk about a lot is the importance of role models. So coming back to role models again. So who have been your role models, do you think, as you've been?
I mean, I always start with my mother, and she's probably watching online now, so I'm going to tell you, she's not really technical. She phones me up all the time for tech support. It's really hard doing tech support online with your parent, but she's not technical. I mean, she's all right, she's in the 70s, she's got her iPhone and her iPad, and she hasn't got most things. But I think my mother was definitely my first role model. My mum was a police officer in the days when women were not police officers. And in those days as well, they used to wear a skirt. Can you imagine seeing a police officer, female, in a skirt now? Yeah. It's not even done yet. Skirt, yeah. Heels and a regulation handbag. And she had a little truncheon in her bag to beat people up with. You can ask her later if she beat anybody up with it. But I think the great thing about that is she didn't let stereotypes stop her. If she wants to be a police officer, that's it. I'm going to be a police officer, even though it was full of men. So I think in that respect, I've been really lucky that there's never been that concept at home that, oh, because you're female, you can't do this. And it started with her, actually.
Yeah, big influence from the home. I relate. My mum was always a very big encouragement towards the maths and the science, and just having that belief in you makes a big difference, doesn't it? And seeing that others can do it. So I think there's more to say around role models still, but I'm struggling to form my question. We talked when we were preparing around kind of Ada Lovelace and some of the activities we've done about promoting some of those role models who are women working in.
I think it's important to know them, and we've all heard, I don't know who said it, because I think different people are attributed to the quote, if you can be it, if you can see it, you can be it, or you can't be what you can't see. So it is really important to see that. But I've got a bit of a bee in my bonnet about this 21% of women in tech. So maybe we can have a discussion about this afterwards. I think there's a difference between women in tech and women off tech. And I've often gone to events where they've rolled out the one woman on the panel. I don't like to be the one woman on the panel, so I always ask what's the balance on the panel. I'd rather it was 50-50. But they roll out this woman who's probably very, very competent, very good at what they do, and they work for a tech company, but they might work in marketing, or they might work in HR, or they might work in project management. And that's great. We shouldn't detract from that. But actually, I think it's really important to get out the highly technical women as well, and make sure that people know that they also exist. And we're not all geeks. And you know what? Actually, I don't care. Call me a geek. I get paid to be a geek. I'm quite happy being a geek. Doesn't really matter to me. So we're not all geeky. Or you can be geeky and cool at the same time, right?
So when you talk about women in tech and women of tech, which do you mean? Which way around? So the women in tech are your...
I guess
scientists.
I would probably say women in tech are women who work in technical companies. So, and you could work in any position in a technical company, or maybe you could have pivoted into a semi-technical role from something else, which is fantastic because lots of people do that. Women off tech are women who work.
Right.
Did I get them the wrong way around?
No, I just wasn't clear from your first answer which you meant as which one. I think it's quite common, isn't it, that you'll have an event that's for women in tech. I've done lots of them, I've run lots of them, and actually then you can still feel a little bit isolated in that because so many women who are there aren't necessarily actually in tech. Have you found any community with other women of tech to get it right, to try and get the right term? What have you been doing?
Yeah, I mean it's easier for me because I'm an academic, so in academia, if you're teaching in a computer science department, you pretty much have to be technical. Otherwise, the students find you out really, really quickly. So I've got a few females in my school, and they are fantastic. I've worked at different universities. I also do accreditation, so I'm an accreditor for the BCS. It's a really enjoyable role. So we go round to other universities who want to have the stamp of approval for their courses, and we accredit them. So we meet a lot of women doing that as well. And we learn a lot about how other universities operate. We get to have a look at their assignments, which is always fun. So yeah, definitely through the university system. probably found it easier than maybe outside of university.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got quite a network of other women of
Yeah, there's not many of us.
there are some out there. So is there any, I don't know, is there anything that you've learned from connecting with other women of tech that's helpful for women of tech specifically, as opposed to the more general?
Sure, that the problems that you're facing are the same problems that other people face. They're the same across the board. They're not unique to one institution.
You see the same kind of patterns. Have you got any advice about how to tackle some of those things within universities? I know you've done some work, you've been in a women's committee and you've been doing other work within...
Yeah, I always join the women's network if I can, just to make friends as well. This is a tough one because it's on you, but basically you need a tough skin, you need a really thick skin, and you need to call the crap out. Call it out, and call it out for yourself, but call it out for other women as well. So if you see somebody that's been spoken down to or misinterpreted, and especially when they're not there, because you could be, I've been in meetings when something's been, or credit has been given to somebody else, and say, no, actually, it was this lady that did it. She's not here today, but I'm going to call it out and I'm going to speak up for her. Yeah. And I think that's really important. But you've got to have a thick skin to do that.
Yeah, you do. And I often find that sometimes something happens in the moment, and you're so surprised by it. It's really hard to speak up for yourself, or even for somebody else as it's happening, and actually just a bit of reflection, and then going having.
But it is hard to speak up for yourself. But actually, if we make it a point of speaking up for each other, I'll speak up for you, and then you'll speak up for me.
Yeah, build that support that way.
Yeah. And this is not just about women speaking up for women. Everybody should be speaking up for everybody to make sure things are done right. So, I speak up for men as well if it's not fair, and men speak up for women. We're all people, aren't we?
We're all people, absolutely. So, Nicky, let's move on and think about some of your own reflections on your own journey. What do you think has been your main source of energy? I mean, you're someone who's very sparky, you've got so much energy. Where do you think that comes from?
I think it comes from other people. Actually, we all know that I feel I'm a bit behind, so I'm 49, and I feel like I could have been where I am maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and I think a mistake that I made, certainly, and maybe some of you can resonate with this, is that I didn't leave things that weren't right soon enough. I kind of held on because I thought I could make it better, and I think I could have left sooner. And the other thing I think I could have done is, so I applied for this role I've got now, the head of school, and I love it. I love being head of school. I love being in charge. But for ages, I thought, that's always the job I wanted. But I kind of talked myself out of applying for it, thinking, I'm not quite there yet, or maybe there are other people who are better than me. And I think just go for it, because at the end of the day, if somebody else has that confidence to offer you that role and think you're good enough, then you are good enough, and you should just go ahead and do it. And you're going to make mistakes, but own your mistakes, learn from them, and move on.
Yeah.
So what was the question, though, that you asked me?
It was, what gives you energy?
What gives me
But
energy?
Actually, it sounds
Right.
like, that was a broader answer. That was also helpful.
It's definitely people. So surround yourself with people that support you, surround yourself with people that think you're great. Surround yourself with critical friends as well. There's no point in everybody telling you, you're doing such a great job, and actually they say you're doing a great job, but if you change that slightly or tweaked it, you could do an even better job.
Yeah.
People give me energy.
Yeah, sometimes hearing those more thoughtful kind of insights about what your impact you're actually having, maybe a bit more critical, but actually much more helpful to really, really make a difference to what you're doing.
What gives you energy? Because you're always full of energy.
People and nerves as well, I think. So there's definitely a bit of that involved.
I mean, I'm caffeine free, but maybe coffee.
Well, I'm trying to cut down on the coffee. I have quite a caffeine ramp. I'll start the day with caffeine, it has to be there, but by this time of evening, no more caffeine, it's not allowed. So, you've had some great recognition for the work you've done too. You've got very senior positions, and you were nominated for Role Model of the Year, which is fantastic, and especially given the importance that you place in role models. I think that's a real, I hope that's a real thing that makes you feel proud that you have been able to be that role model for other people as well.
I try, but I think it's important you're never at the end of the journey. So, for example, I've got a mentor at work, and I also mentor other people. There's always going to be, and I don't know if this is maybe why I ended up in academia, that thirst for learning, but there's always room for improvement. There's always space where you can learn more and you can take more in. And there's always people you can learn from. So, okay, you might be a role model to somebody, but there's always somebody who can be a role model to you as well.
Absolutely. Many role models.
I know, I've been very lucky.
Yeah. So a different look on kind of recognition. There's sometimes those kind of small comments that people can make can be the most meaningful things. What's the best compliment you've ever received? Oh God, that's maybe a bit too much of an on-the-spot question.
No, it's just that I'm trying to think of what it could be. I don't think so much compliment, but I can't think of an example right now, but I'll tell you what happens to me a lot. So I spell, my name's Nicole, it's French, don't know why, you can ask my mother. But I do call myself Nicky. I will respond to Nicole as well, it's not an issue, but I spell my name N-I-C-K-Y, and there's a reason why I spell my name N-I-C-K-Y, not N-I-K-K-I, and that's because, so I got onto the internet in 1993, and I really, really didn't want to be a female on the internet in 1993. So I picked a variation of my name that was, I suppose, gender neutral, but you couldn't tell straight away that I was a female. I think maybe one of the things that happens to me a lot, because that's my official name at work as well, is when people actually meet me, they automatically assume I'm male because of the fact that I'm in a computer science department, that I write my name N-I-C-K-Y.
Yeah.
And not so much a compliment, but it's quite nice to surprise people. You know?
No, it's nice to bring in something they didn't expect.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I quite like that.
unique. Yeah.
I'll have to think of the compliment. If my mother is online, we can ask her later.
See what she has to say about it. So what advice would you give to other people in the room here? You know, how to achieve some of the success and the, I think the pleasure that you've achieved in the career that you've had?
I think definitely, and you've probably heard this before, but I certainly think it's don't be afraid to fail. And I've got members of staff who come to me with a problem, and they say, oh, maybe I want to do this, and I always say to them, what's the worst that can happen? So have a go. What's the worst that can happen? Apply for that job. If you don't get it, so what? Have a go at writing a piece of code. So my PhD student, I'm not going to say PhD student because he's passed, he's a doctor now and he's an academic, but his work was on resilience essentially. So we know that there's probably about 20% of students who start computer science degrees, they start learning to program, and programming is easy at the beginning. Everyone can do a little bit of hello world and a little bit of a loop or something, and then they hit a wall. Yeah. And this is a crucial point. You either fall off and drop out of computer science, or you find a way to get over that wall and you fly. And resilience is so important. Resilience is what's going to get you over that wall. There's no such thing as, your mind is a programming mind, your mind isn't a programming mind. You've just got to keep going until you get over that wall. And some people don't like failure. And when that, you're compiling some code and it comes back with lots of errors, you're like, I can't deal with it. Or you take each error one at a time, fix it and move on. Yeah. So I think just don't be afraid of failure. Yeah. And have a go.
Go for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's great advice. Right, so let's have some quick fire questions and then we'll open up for all of you to ask your questions for Nicky as well. So just some
quick fire from you.
Quick fire ones from me, yeah.
I feel like I'm in an exam.
That's it. well, we can all give you a grade at the end of it. So we've all heard loads about you. So I'm curious, what might be something unexpected about you that you've not heard about yet?
I've got an A-class motorbike license.
Oh, okay. There you go.
I'm very short, so I can only ride Japanese imports. I can't ride those big bags because I can't. But my parents were both bikers. My dad didn't get his driving license till he was in his 30s, and he ended up with 2 children. When he only had me, I was the firstborn. He just needed a motorbike. So after he had 2, he on a bike, so he ended up getting a motorbike. So I've grown up on a motorbike.
I see, and it sort of suits the mental image of the superhero version of you I have in my head now as well.
On a motorbike.
Okay, so my next question is, if you could have coffee or some other drink of your choice with somebody famous, that might be real or imaginary, who would you choose?
Well, seen as I think it depends when you ask me who I would pick, but actually seen as The Cure are playing in London this week and I have failed miserably to get tickets, I'm going to go for Robert Smith.
What would you say to Robert Smith?
Oh, well, that's between me and him.
Okay, we'll keep that a bit private.
I'll ask him if he'd play at my birthday party in December.
That would be very cool. Nicky, what's your hope for the future?
This is a really great question. This is a really serious question. My hope for the future, I think, is when I look at young girls and young boys as well, is that there are no restrictions on what they can do based on their gender. So, for example, there's a really great campaign that's been running for years, and I don't know if somebody has heard of the campaign called Let Toys Be Toys. It is absolutely fantastic. So you're dealing with ridiculous things like, say you buy a book to learn how to do joined up letters. You can buy a tracing letters for girls, which is in pink, and tracing letters for boys, which is in blue. What is the difference? You're tracing letters, you know? So just let young people, or let kids be kids, and then let them grow up to be whatever they want to be.
Yeah. So do you have any closing words that you'd like to leave with everybody before we open up for their questions?
No, I think it's just going back to what I said before. Just if you see something that's it, just call it out. I know it's tough, but find something inside you to just speak up, because it's really, really difficult, especially if you're in a room with not just your peers, but maybe your bosses or people who are a lot more senior to you. Just, what's the worst that can happen? Oh, you're in computer science. If you get fired, you can just get another job. It's fine.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Nicky.
Thank you.
And well, I think a round of applause for Nicky. And who'd like to go first?
Can I go first? Thank you very much, Nicky. Very inspiring. I would like to ask you about the AI and generative AI. What's the impact to higher education in the university? Because currently, some big techs, they already make some people redundant because they can use the technology to replace some jobs. I want to know your view that because you are in education, you are nurturing and educating young people, and young people are our future. What skills the universities are preparing to educate the students so that when they finish their education, they will not be worried that they will be unemployed?
I mean, that's a big question, because I work in computer science and universities have got hundreds of courses, but the impact on universities is massive right now in terms of assessment, because in the past, maybe not so much in computing, but in other subjects, for example, in a social science, you might give a student an essay question and they'd go away, they'd do lots of reading and they'd formulate the answer, they'd do some critical thinking and write down the essay. Now, ChatGPT will write the essay for you. In computer science, we, at least Trinity certainly, we have embraced AI. So our thinking is, it's here to stay. How can we use it? So if AI is going to start writing code for us, great. Let AI write code, we can do something else. We can direct that code, we can write test scripts to make sure that the code is accurate, we can focus on the design, on the elegance, on the efficiency of the code. There is no point in rejecting it, so let's embrace it and use it to its full potential. That's what we, at least Trinity, do. I can't speak for other universities. But actually fighting against it and telling students, no, you can't use it, is pointless. We tell them, hey, actually you can use it, tell us where you've used it, so that we can appreciate that's an AI bit of your work, and then tell us why you used it, and we'll give you marks for implementing it in a clever and innovative way.
So it's basically to educate the students new skills to prepare for them to go out when they finish their education, that they still add value to their employers, right?
Exactly.
Thank you.
So related to what she said, so what happened to plagiarism? Because sometimes when you allow them to use the AI to generate either code or whatever you want them to do, and two students use the same thing and they present it to you, so how do you justify that?
We never just ask for code in an assessment. There's always going to be a journey where, for example, you might give a student a case study or a scenario. They have to come up with a proposed solution. They have to come up with their design decisions as to what that solution is. So it's highly unlikely that The code's going to be exactly the same, bearing in mind that all those other things fit around it. If two students submit a full assessment, 360-degree assessment, that's exactly the same, then the odds are they've copied of each other. So then you bring them in and you start an investigation.
Thank you. So we are.
The trick to AI and to make sure students don't use it inappropriately is to design really good assessments. So if you know how to design an assessment that incorporates the use of AI, then you're quizzing, aren't you? You know, and you're helping the student learn how to use it, you're helping them think for themselves. So computing, you might disagree with this, but my view is computing is about people. Because actually we're here to make people's life better, aren't we? We are using technology to problem solve and to come up with solutions. Computing is definitely about people. So don't for a minute think that we're churning out after 3 or 4 years graduates who can just code. That's not what we're doing. Programming is a very small part of computer science. If all we're doing is churning out graduates that can code, then what's the point? Because ChatGPT can do that for us. We want to churn out graduates that can think, that can solve problems, and that can deal with people so that they can understand requirements and come up with appropriate solutions. Gosh, I sound like an academic.
You do. Has anyone got any more questions? Yes, over here.
I'm not sure whether you watched The Big Bang Theory.
Love it. I love it.
Therefore, the question was, what does it do in terms of everything else you've been saying?
It doesn't start off well, admittedly, because you've got these very geeky boys, and obviously you've got Penny next door, who's the antithesis of the geek, and she's very cool and she's very pretty. But I think as other characters come online, they do a really great job of introducing female physicists, female biologists, and I love the last episode. Yeah, the last episode is fantastic. I don't want to. It's all right, spoilers, right? Because it's been over for a long time.
I haven't watched the last episode. I gave up on the last series. I used to think the early series were great.
Okay, I
kind
loved
of lost
it.
interest.
And I rewatched the whole thing, but I rewatched it with young Sheldon first, which gave him a lot of context as well when he was little, so it explains what it was like when he was little. But in the last episode, Sheldon, the main character, and his wife both win the joint Nobel Prize for Physics. And I think it's fantastic that they both got it, and they both give credit to each other for working together for winning that.
Never seen it. I'm gonna have to actually watch.
It's really good. I really like it. Yeah. Anything geeky, I'm gonna like. I'm thirsty for more geek shows.
Well, maybe any geek show recommendations for the rest of us?
I've always loved, and it's quite
IT crowd.
Yeah, it's okay, but that's more like technicians, and I always do remind people I'm not a technician, so please don't ask me for technical support. Can't do it. Yes, Mum, I can't do technical support. I've always loved it. It's quite not a very well-known show, but I've always loved a show called *Halt and Catch Fire*.
Oh, I loved that. That was really good.
Nobody else has watched *Halt
Definitely
and Catch Fire*.
recommend that
And it's a fictional show, but it's got lots of nods. It kind of follows the IT and the internet from the 70s all the way to now, and how things progressed, and it's great, isn't it?
Yeah,
I don't want to
really
say too
is.
much. Just go and watch it.
Yeah, but yeah, if you had computers in the 80s and 90s, you will
You
relate.
remember them.
Yeah.
Like a Compaq.
Yeah.
I've never met anyone else who's seen it, so that's great.
That's so good. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
So apart from AI, what changes in computing in the last, let's say, decade have been dramatic and have changed the curriculum, changed the way you think about computer science?
For me personally, without a doubt, it's the internet. Because I remember life before the internet. I remember having to go to the library and looking stuff up in books. I remember having to look up when I was a student. I discovered the internet when I went to university, but it was ARPANET. It was basically just education networks, really basic. I remember having to look up recipes in recipe books or...
Microfiche as well.
Oh gosh, no, I don't remember microfiche.
I'm old enough to remember that.
But the internet changed my life. And things like, for example, when you wanted to do something technical, like, when I was an undergraduate, we did awful things like COBOL and assembler, yeah?
Language.
And you had to really find somebody or one of your teachers who knew how to fix a problem. Now, You can either type it into a search engine and somebody's already posted the problem with the answer, or forums. Forums are fantastic. Forums gives you access to experts all over the world that can help you with your issue. And one of the things about the internet as well is, okay, we've got the dark side of the net and all the issues that come with it, but the internet is also full of people who are willing to help for nothing. You know, if you go into a special interest forum for programmers, for example, or web developers, there are lots and lots of people who are dedicating their time to free to answer questions, to help you out, say, oh, send me your code, I'll have a look at it. So the internet definitely changed my life, and I'm sure it's changing students' lives now. It's just that they don't know it because they don't remember life without it.
Yeah.
Over 20. Can I have a follow-up to that, please? You've answered in a particular way. I think what I had more in mind was the curriculum for those who are actually going to go and develop software, and your answer is relevant, of course, to that. But in terms of, say, the curriculum and how it maybe should have changed and how it maybe needs to change some more for what's coming, AI is kind of blinding everybody at the minute, and it's quite appropriate that a lot of time is put into that. But there's a lot more going out there, and the last 10 years have, I think, seen dramatic change, which I'm not sure if it's reflected in the curricula of our education.
I mean, the thing is, we have seen change and we haven't, because if you think about it, universities are not training centres. We're not here to train people in the latest tech so that they can go out and do it. We have academic regulations, we have quality regulations we have to adhere to. So I've been in education over 25 years, and at its very basic, fundamental level, the degree in computer science hasn't really changed, because we have to teach concepts. So how many programming languages are there? Does anyone know the answer? Because I don't, but the answer is hundreds of them. We can't just teach the latest programming language, because what happens when that language is no longer popular? So what we do is pick a language, a good language to teach in. For example, C++ is a good teaching language, and you teach concepts. So you teach how to do loops or sorting algorithms in C++, with the idea that that student can then take those concepts and apply them to any language. And I think that's why computer science fundamentally hasn't really changed, because we teach concepts rather than languages or rather than pieces of software. Because if you teach a piece of software really, really well to a student, the minute they go into industry, they might encounter something completely different. So it's difficult to teach computer science because the subject is very big. So teaching concepts, teaching problem-solving skills, i.e. how to face a solution and come up with an answer using the technology around you. And also teaching them research skills. And I don't mean research skills in the traditional sense where you read lots of books and articles and then you form a critical thought, but research skills as in, hey, I've got a problem, or I've identified this problem, I kind of have an idea of what the solution is, but I need to go and find out whether that's the right solution or not.
Investigation.
Yeah, investigation skills is a better word, thank you. But that's what we need to teach graduates. And what we also need to do is, to some extent, work with industry and with businesses who are hiring these graduates to understand is that when you get somebody that's 21 years old and straight out of a degree, they are not going to be perfect. They are still on their learning journey. So we've done, school teachers have done their bit, we've done our bit, and now it's your turn to do your bit and to carry on teaching.
Lifelong learning skills is very important.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure I answered your question, but yes, AI is blinding all of us at the moment. Maybe we don't have an answer to that question. What should we be teaching? If you ask, so you have an industry board of different businesses, and if you ask them what should we be teaching, everybody will give you a different answer, because they want you to teach what they're using.
Yes.
And we're not a training centre, we're a university.
Yes, but you're also talking to people who may be not deeply educated in the things that you might need to teach.
Yeah, it's really hard. It is really hard. We just do the best we can.
You're also building character, building their character and teamwork skills and things like that, apart from what you're actually teaching the subject. And that's only a means of developing their characters.
But that needs to come early on. That resilience needs to come early on in school. It's okay to allow children to fail. Not everybody needs to come first, and not everybody needs to win all the time.
We have time for one more, Darren.
Oh, sure, yes, no
Are
problem.
there any online questions or?
We've got some comments. Dan says he spent his early childhood in St Christopher's and Europa Point.
Oh, hello. He must have been in the services because that was a school for, kids who came over with like the army, the navy. Yeah, he was lucky, right by the lighthouse in Europa Point. Apparently the southernmost point in Europe. You can see Africa from there.
Oh,
Yeah, really
I
lovely
didn't know
place.
that.
And one from Nikita. I love how this meeting is being led by women.
Oh, thank you.
No, Darren sat at the back.
Darren, huh?
Yeah. How do you teach IT risk?
Okay. So I'm gonna pick up on the IT word first because so we're computer science. And sometimes we kind of interchange the word computer science and IT, but to me they mean two different things actually. And I used to do a lot of open day talks, and parents would ask me, "Oh, how come they teach IT in the business school and you're computer science?" And I said, "Well, actually, think of it as a Formula One car. If you're doing IT and you're really good at it, you're the Formula One driver. You know, Lando, or you know what? I love Lando. I love Formula One. So you're really, really good at what you do, but you use the tech and you use it appropriately. But that's what you do. But actually, we're the people in the pit stop. We know what goes on under the hood. We build the cars, we put them together. That's the difference between computer science and IT. But how do you teach IT risk, or how do you teach computer science risk? Because then they're two different questions. You can't teach everything. All you can do is, like I said, teach problem-solving skills. Because actually, if you have problem-solving skills, you can then try and guess what risk is going to happen. But the other thing we do, and I think we do it very, very well at Leeds Trinity University, we have real life experience, work experience across all years of the course. So it's only like 6 weeks at level 5, which is the second year, but it's really great. And we have companies that come in and they run projects. They run a 6-week project with our students, with real work that happens in industry. But the other thing that's really important is we do group work across all of the years. And I think group work is really important for several reasons. In computing, you need to deal with people. So you need to be able to work with other people. This idea where you just start at a computer all day going, click, 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 forget it. It's not going to happen. But the other thing is, if you put students in diverse groups, then they're going to learn things that they didn't know before, because people are different and they think in different ways. And I think that's a really good way to mitigate risk as well. I always worry about the security of our country, because GCHQ, for example, they are very good at hiring graduates. But what they do is they hire graduates straight out of university, and they train them for a very long time, and they train them and they mold them. So at the end of 20 years, everybody thinks the same way. If you want to have somewhere that's defended all around the borders, 360-degree defense, you need diversity. You need people to think differently. If you train them all along the same journey and along the same route, when you come to a problem, what's going to happen? You're all going to think up on the same solution.
You're avoiding group thinking.
So what you need is diversity, and diversity is I think, one of the solutions to mitigating risk.
Hey, Nikki. I wanted to ask a bit more of a personal question to you. I think as a woman in tech, I've been able to see different sides of yourself, and you seem to be very comfortable in your own skin. So I wanted to ask you if there was ever a point in your life where you came to the realization of, yes, I finally want to be able to embrace my technical side, my geeky side, like you mentioned, my feminine side, or were you always that way, that comfortable in yourself? And yeah.
It's a great question. Actually, I became a lecturer really young. I was 24. I think looking back now, I was too young. And I remember, I had big lectures. I had students, between 200 and 300 students in this massive room. And when I first used to go and give lectures, I'd walk in, and I'm sure all the students either thought I was another student or maybe the teaching assistant. And some of it's to do with attitude, because I was a little bit unsure as well. And it probably took me about 10 years before I walked in and I didn't have to say anything, but they knew I was in charge. And I think it's just the way that you hold yourself. It took me about 10 years, and it was really tough. It came with time. But yeah, I go back to my mom, yeah? Do you know what? I'm probably a little bit of a goth at heart. You can tell I wear a lot of black, but my favorite color is pink. I wear pink as well. I love tech, and I think I just don't care. I don't care, and I think my mother instilled that in me. As long as you know you're a good person and you treat people well and with respect, you do what you want, you do you, and don't care what anybody else thinks about it.
It's good to be good.
Can I ask a last question, Nicky? About AI as well. I have a friend.
You probably know more about AI than I do.
I have a friend. He is a university lecturer. They are facing the challenge from university students. The students think they know everything.
Yeah, always.
They think they're more knowledgeable than their lecturers, their academic staff. How do you tackle this challenge when your students stop respecting you?
Okay, you're always going to get some students who are really, really good. I've taught students in the past who are phenomenal. They are amazing at programming. They are now flying high. You know, some of them have got their own companies. Some of them are doing really well in industry. Some of them have become academics. They're amazing. You're never going to be able to know everything. Computing is tough. It's a tough subject. That's why people drop out and they don't do it at university. It's hard. It's a big subject. I think what they need from you is a confidence that even though you might not have that factual answer to everything, one is you can find out. So you can be really good at finding out what the answer is. You know, I'll help you, I'll get back to you. But it's also, don't forget, as lecturers, we're not encyclopedias. That's not what we're there for. It's a much bigger picture at university. We're there to support them in their journey of self-discovery because they should be teaching themselves as well. We're almost guiding them to some extent. We only have them for so many hours a week. They should need to go away and learn as well and read and practice. But we're also there. It seems terrible because, you know, they're 18 and they're adults, but in some ways we're also there in loco parentis, you know, instead of parents. And I don't mean more of the support, you know, the pastoral support, the care for students. I mean, students still have lives. They have lives and lots of things are happening in their lives. And sometimes university is not the priority for them. So I think students will respect you if you don't lie to them because they can see right through that. And if you don't know something, tell them you don't know. But come back to them with the answer. Say, look, I'm going to find out for you. And I'm going to make sure that we can find out together. Support them, you know, respect them. And I think respecting students is a big, big deal. You're not superior to them. You're just there, you're doing a job and they're there to learn from you. But you're all in it together. And I think that's the difference between school and university. It's far more you're at a level with the students at universities and maybe you're not in school. You shouldn't be at university to manage a classroom because of behavior, for example. You should be working together towards the end goal, and the end goal is for them to do as well as possible and get the best grade possible for that degree. That's the end goal of both of you.
Thank you.
Do you have any
Can I?
questions? We'll go here first.
That's fine.
I mean, I was also an academic, so I.
So you know.
No, not in that way, because there is a dilemma now, because when it comes to the market, something that there's a concept or perception that MBA is more rewarded than more scientific field, and we naturally see that now when they go out to the market. Also, if they are from the top schools with MBA, they are much differently evaluated. What is your thought on that, or do you think it's fair? Because I see that very often now in big enterprises, it's easy for them to climb up, and they are good in communication, presentation skills, and things like that. So, what is your thought on that?
And communication is really important if you can't communicate. But, I mean, we're comparing two different things because obviously our bread and butter is the undergraduate computer science degree. That's the bread and butter of computer science. You can't do a computer science master's unless it's a conversion without doing the undergraduate, because computing is an applied skill. Think of it as a pyramid. You start off learning the foundations of that pyramid, and you need to learn this bit at the bottom before you can learn the stuff at the top, and then gradually become more and more specialized. I mean, I could recommend to students, hey, do an undergraduate in computer science and then go and do an MBA. They're two very different things, and you can have
Like maths, like mathematics is the foundation.
One of the best groups here was enterprise architecture, and they were mainly committee guys in their 50s who've got IT
Only
degrees
guys.
plus MBAs. And they were trying to match the business users with the technical people, obviously find it difficult to communicate with each other. And they put on some really good stuff because they got the business education and the IT as well.
Yeah, if you can combine all of those things, then it's great. You've got perfect employee there. Or you can just give up the money, give up the fame, and come and become an academic.
Dalim, do we have pizzas and everything arrived?
We do, and they're ready when you are.
Excellent. So let's take one last question and then we can all go and talk more informally and enjoy the networking. We had one earlier as well.
We can chat later.
You want me?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, basically, I just want to support the answer you gave to her because apparently, I'm just going to brief. When you use the word respect, because in my place of work, despite the fact my manager, she's superior to me, there's this case scenario that she asked me to do something, and I realized that what she wants me to do is not going to work. But instead of her I gave her a solution, and she want to impose her superiority on me, that I should do it this way. If you go this, just get A, B, C, D, and do the. And I said, but I just listened to her. What I actually did, I proved it to her that this is not going to work, and I showed her the case scenario. But the thing is, as you said, supposing she come to me, oh, Taiwo, let's try it the way you said. Let's see and show me a good scenario. If it's going to work, I will respect her. But now, at the moment, the respect I gave to her is declining because apparently she believes she knows everything. When I prove it to her, she realized that she's wrong. So, based on what your friend, maybe because sometimes, as she said, not everybody knows everything at all. Maybe you, like, especially when it comes to coding, and students say, oh, you can do it this. Okay, you just, oh, are you sure? Okay, let me just try it this way. They will respect your friend. So that's the way I say it.
It's about how to handle.
Exactly, it's a reciprocal.
Yeah.
I'm really lucky. I've got some great managers at the university, and they trust me to get on with it. And I think as long as you deliver, and you deliver on time, and you deliver within budget, then they'll trust you. And I think trust as well as respect is so important.
Very, very important.
That is a lovely point to leave it. Thank you all for your brilliant questions, and thank you, Nicky.
Thank you, Jo.
Thank you for your brilliant answers.
Great. Well, that again affirmed my view that Jo is my favourite interviewer.
Great. I'm waiting for Jo to be interviewed. That would be interesting.
Should be on TV or on the radio.
That's an idea. Well, let
Should
me
I have my next career?
let me give you an update on what we've got coming up for you in the next few weeks. A sneak peek, if you like. So what we have actually follows some themes. One is the academic theme, because we next have a professor from Essex University talking about that well-known IT subject, non-invasive neuroadaptive brain-computer interfaces. Yes, really.
Sounds fascinating.
He is great. He's a very personable person, and I think you get the theme. You know, you can know everything, but if you can't present it well, a lot of it's lost. And you've seen an example of that today.
When is that?
That one is on the 29th of October.
Oh,
Non-invasive.
next week.
Yes, as well. Because as you know, we don't run 8 events per year. We run 8 events in 2 months. Yeah. So that's on the 29th of October. Non-invasive neuroadaptive brain-computer interfaces. He is really good.
There's one which is full up. It might be that one.
It is that one.
Just sneak in at the back.
Yeah. Then on the 7th of November, we have another academic who is our old friend, Professor Claudio Cilli of the University of Rome. This one is a webinar. The theme is AI, but get this, it's on ChatGPT risks, the weaknesses. I've entitled it AI Risks, or How to Hack ChatGPT. And that is getting to be a very real issue in terms of trust and ethics and all those other things, because now ChatGPT hacking is becoming a well-known art, science, you take your pick. That's on the 7th of November. We then have another academic. He's written many books, and he's our favorite American webinar presenter, Ulf Mattson, who's written about 10 or 12 books on the subjects of data and privacy. And he is going to do something slightly different. He's going to have a cybersecurity panel, which comprises people from across the US, so East Coast, West Coast, and Israel, controversially, and is put together a whole series of cybersecurity questions for them. And that sounds really interesting from what I've seen of the questions. And then, this is specifically to answer your questions and your wishes. On the 19th of November, we have the AGM for one of our 3 groups, and also we have somebody being interviewed called Joe Stansfield. So let's find out what Joe is about. I'm afraid I will be the very weak interviewer, but Joe will guide me in terms of what to ask and how it goes, based on her great expertise in terms of knowledge and
I'll just ask the
presentation.
questions and answer them.
Yeah. So, and that's on the 19th of November. We do also have things in the pipeline for December, but I think that's enough to be going on with. Yeah? Okay, so that's it. Do come, do participate. Mixture of webinars and hybrid. And in the meantime, there's a mixture of pizzas and drink next door. They're for you. Come and chat.